All right, welcome and thank you for joining us this evening for the MIT Executive MBA Healthcare panel. My name is Andy Brown. I'm Program Coordinator and I work with admissions to process applications and help onboard our admitted students. I'm joined this evening by my two colleagues, Tom and Mike. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Well, hello, my name is Tom Little. I'm a marketing assistant with the team. I work mostly in social media. And tonight I'm going to be running technical things and also be helping moderate the Q&A, and it's great to have you here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mike McCauley. I'm the Senior Associate Director of Marketing and Recruiting for the program. Really excited to have you here tonight. Really excited for our panel as well, and looking forward to what's going to be a great event.
All right. Our agenda this evening is to talk about the MIT Executive MBA at a glance. We're then going to focus on healthcare, and then we're going to follow it up with a Q&A for students and alumni. The MIT Executive MBA at a glance is a general overview of our program, and the best place to start with that is to talk about our missions, both the mission from MIT and the mission from MIT Sloan. Today, the Institute is comprised of 6 schools: the Schwartzman College of Computing, Science, Engineering, Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences, Architecture and Planning, and since 1914, the Sloan School of Management. Our missions are, we're mission driven. Our missions are central to everything that we do. They're a differentiator between the Institute, the school, and your candidacy and how you connect to the mission. The mission for MIT is to advance knowledge and educate students in science, technology, and other areas of scholarship that will best serve the nation and the world in the 21st century. The mission of MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who will improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. MIT MBA, the Executive MIT EMBA makes a very special contribution to MIT because the students are in a position to put what they learn into practice immediately. Now, let's break down how much time that takes. This is a 20-month program and it's comprised of 26 weekend sessions. You would be matriculating to campus every second or third weekend. We consider a weekend session a Friday and Saturday. Throughout the program, we have also 4 week-long modules that are spread out strategically for you. For instance, you start with a week-long module and you end the program with a week-long module. In addition to that, there is the opportunity for 1 week-long international trip as part of Go Labs. To break down that time and how you'll spend it, we should talk about the curriculum. Our weekend sessions will contain your core classes, which will cover your analytical frameworks like organizational processes, data models and decisions, system dynamics. And then you'll also cover your business essentials like accounting, finance, and marketing. Your integrated modules are your week-long sessions while you're on campus. We've broken them down here: LIM, Idea Week, LGC, and LWI. That's how we refer to them by their acronyms. While all classes include action learning, the 2 that incorporate it the most are organizational labs and global labs. Of course, you will also need to take electives for our program, which happen in the 1st January, the 2nd January, and the final spring semester. Now I'll pass things over to Mike to talk about healthcare.
Great. Thanks so much, Andy, and welcome again, everyone. We're glad you're here with us tonight on the East Coast and wherever else you may be calling in from. So I'd like to spend the next few minutes talking about MIT's focus on healthcare, specifically within our ecosystem, but also in our classroom of students. So MIT's focus on healthcare comes in a few different ways. The first I'll highlight here is MIT's Initiative for Health Systems Innovation. This is an initiative led by MIT Sloan and MIT EMBA professor Rathnaf Leffy, where the focus is on improving healthcare as a whole, both in the United States and abroad. Specifically, as you can see here, the initiative performs the crucial work of identifying high-quality, cost-effective health systems essential to individual and societal well-being. And this is where the mission of MIT Sloan, as Andy mentioned, to create principled, innovative leaders who improve the world, that's where it's really being applied directly into the healthcare sector. Now, over the spring term, the initiative hosts a guest speaker series, providing a forum for experienced researchers and practitioners to talk about their cutting edge work. The initiative also hosts the Healthcare Certificate, which is popular among MIT Sloan students, particularly those who either want to transition into the healthcare, biotech, pharma space, or those who already work in one area of the industries and maybe want to broaden their knowledge into other aspects of the field. The certificate is open to all MIT students enrolled in a degree-seeking program. So continuing on, MIT's focus in healthcare is also apparent by our presence in conferences and clubs, electives, and research and organizational connections, excuse me. And you'll see a few examples listed here too. So some of these electives you'll take are a part of the healthcare certificate program, specifically healthcare lab, one I'll call out. And this is where you'll really get to experience that action learning element that makes the MIT EMBA so unique. So as healthcare professionals, you'll truly take those frameworks you learn in the classroom and immediately apply them into your role. So if you look at also some of these conferences and organizational connections too, as an MIT EMBA student, you'll gain access to each of these opportunities. Now remember, if you're part of the MIT EMBA, you are still a part of the MIT ecosystem and can take part in the same opportunities as any other student here at the Institute. But let's talk about that MIT EMBA community and cohort for a moment. So I'd like you to picture the cohort of executives you'd be joining here in the MIT EMBA. All the statistics that you see in your screen right here are from the class of 2023, but I will tell you that the profile remains remarkably similar across all of our past classes. So imagine yourself sitting in this class of 126 global executives. 90% are at the director level and above. The average student is 41 years old with 17 years of work experience. And because of our executive schedule, most of your classmates, 67%, are non-local, and we define that as living outside of Massachusetts. Your classmates are diverse in many ways. 50% were born internationally in close to 30 different countries. A third of the population are women, and 14% of our US students self-identify with races or ethnicities which are underrepresented in higher education. And while many, 60%, hold advanced degrees, you should know that we value real-world leadership experience too. And lastly, one of the most important stats on the slide, 100% of your classmates are employed full-time. They are working full-time during this program. Andy mentioned that our program is on weekends, Fridays and Saturdays, every 2 to 3 weekends. Working full-time is actually a requirement for admission. And I mentioned working full-time. I wanted to share a few organizations where our students in healthcare and life sciences are working while in the program. So you'll notice that 37% of the MIT EMBA class of 2023 is working in healthcare, life sciences, or pharma. And the number of practicing physicians in that class is 19. But the list of organizations you see here is more than just that. It spans cohorts. So you'll see a combination of hospitals, you'll see some universities, government, pharma represented. Some of these organizations are nearby, local hospitals, biotech startups, and research facilities. Others are across the country. And together they really make part of a really collaborative, really incredible community that I'd actually like to share with you today. So Andy and I kind of gave you the brief intro of the MIT EMBA. We talked a little bit about some of the aspects of healthcare within the program. We want to spend the rest of the evening of the session giving you the opportunity to ask any questions you may have to our student and alumni panel. So this is the time where I would say start typing in the chat any questions that you have. While you're doing that, I will ask our panelists to introduce themselves, tell us where they're from, maybe talk a little bit about their role, what they do in the healthcare sector. John, I am going to start with you.
Great, thank you, and good evening, everybody. So my name's John Coe. I'm a general pediatrician, and I'm based in Boston at Mass General Brigham, which is a large integrated health system, mostly in Massachusetts, although we've extended a little bit beyond that. My interests actually for a long time have been in two main areas: medical education and quality, safety, and health equity, and really started my career mostly heading down the traditional academic path, but now have leadership roles in both medical education and quality and safety, and really have found the program a perfect fit for advancing my leadership abilities, not only in those roles, but thinking ahead to other roles and larger roles within and outside the organization. So.
Great, thank you. Joseph.
Hi, it's great to be here. I wish I could see everybody and see you in person, but I'm very honored to be here and was so excited to be able to study at MIT Sloan. I'm at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I'm a plastic surgeon. I do almost completely microsurgical cancer reconstruction, which is basically my interest is patients who kind of fall through the cracks with diseases that are usually considered non-surgical or untreatable, such as lymphedema and facial paralysis. I do a lot of breast reconstruction using the patient's own tissue, head and neck reconstruction, and kind of big cases that don't have any sort of cookie cutter solution. Everything I do is under the microscope, and I've made my career innovating new surgical procedures and really kind of hit a wall with suture and thread and got interested in the startup world in healthcare in a way that can impact more patients. Since MIT, I've been a director at Wellways, which produces basically a little sticky pad for the breast to detect breast disease in women. Most women around the world are not screened for breast cancer, and even those that are under the age of 40, there is no screening for women. And I take care of a lot of young women with breast cancer. Usually they present with very advanced disease because there's no screening. So those are things I'm very passionate about, and now working on starting a fund with some people in my cohort. There's a totally different model, but I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Kylie.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be a part of this panel, so thanks again for inviting me. My name is Kylie Wagner. I am originally from Michigan, but since have located to the Boston area with my husband. I have been in the life sciences industry for over 15 years, primarily with Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Throughout my experiences there, I have held roles in sales leadership and marketing, and really kind of moved across the organization. In the last couple roles, taken on more of a strategic view of the business. So starting to focus more on strategy and operational roles on the commercial side of the business. My role that is stated here, most recently I've been chief of staff for our US president at Takeda, and actually just transitioning into a new role on our plasma-derived therapies team as a marketing franchise head. So again, it's been a great experience to work for a wonderful organization. And again, this program, I can't say enough wonderful things and how it's really helped me to continue to really challenge my leadership approach and look and view the organization more holistically. It's really helped with like trade-off decisions and the different frameworks that they walk through. And I really think it's kind of really helped me to evolve as a leader and strengthen my approach. But again, thrilled to be here with everyone tonight.
Great. Thank you all. So I think maybe let's start with maybe an easy one. Why did you apply to the MIT EMBA in the first place? John, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was really attracted to the fact that the class, was a sort of very experienced class. I don't want to talk about age, but just, in comparing different possibilities, other programs, really found that to be a big plus, because I wanted to be in a setting where I was amongst people who had been out, in the workforce and the work environment for quite a while. I also love the fact that while there was a critical mass of people related to healthcare in the cohort, that it was not all healthcare, because even though I will be staying in the healthcare field in some form, felt like healthcare has some good things about it, and there's a lot of things that actually need improvement. And I feel like looking at how other industries approach problems would be invaluable for me in terms of thinking about how I could apply those models to a healthcare setting. So those are two of the reasons. I mean, there's a countless number of others, but I'd say those are two of my top ones.
And Kylie or Joseph?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I was answering one of these chat questions.
Yeah, you know what, Joseph, go ahead and do that. Kylie, why did you apply to the MIT MBA?
Absolutely. So honestly, so I looked at a ton of different programs, and I was joking with Andy earlier that this was one of the calls that helped to kind of persuade me to apply to this school, because people asked really good questions and I got a lot of information. So, feel free to ask anything. This program was different than the others that I looked at. Honestly, my undergrad was in business. And so as I looked across, other programs, I was looking for something different. I wanted more than just, your traditional classes. And I thought that this was such a customized program and really took advantage of us being in such a healthcare mecca, right? This is where all the innovation and so much of this industry is centered around. And then so I knew that the customization to the program and the people, I think that it really has continued to be a really good experience. So that's really what changed it for me.
So you talked a little bit about customizing your experience. Is there anything, Kylie, that you're doing specifically, whether it's in electives that you're taking or within the curriculum, where you could maybe talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that's the kind of the great thing and the hard thing. There's so many different classes that you have access to and communities you have access to. So for those considering applying, I think having some focus is really important. But the great part is that both within your world and then just your area of interest, you really can just fully explore what could be, right? It's that time in your life that you get to pause and be really selfish and give back to yourself. And, I feel like through the elective classes specifically and the leadership classes, for example, I'm taking Discovering Your Leadership Signature right now, and it's really just stretching the way you view yourself. Which helps for so many reasons, especially if you're all leading teams or just having that self-reflection time. So I think that customization, because you're able to go outside of even the curriculum, really helps to just push yourself to get the most out of the experience.
For sure. I do want to get to one of the questions in the chat. This one's from Justin, and open to Ed, maybe John or Joseph to share this one. What course, actually, I'd love all three of your opinions. What course or courses were most helpful in your current role? And I asked for all three because, John and Joseph being more in medical, and then Kylie being more in the life sciences atmosphere, I think that maybe there's some similarities, but I do want to have the three of you individually share. So John, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so on a very practical level, like I'd say, like if you want to do like an actual improvement project, OLAB is, that's actually what it's for. And so in a practical way, like I think that's like would be one of the top on my list. Like even if you have experience doing quality improvement, which I have, I think they teach it, in a really great way. And again, they have you try to apply what you're learning in real time to something you're struggling with at work. So that's on a practical level. I really love the DMD course. Actually, it was something that I observed when I was like considering the program. I think there was a opportunity to like sit in on a virtual class, and I'm very quantitative, oriented, but still found, what they taught like very, very much additive to what I learned when I did my MPH. And then the other one I would list was competitive strategy, because I think many of my classmates know it's kind of really foreign to me. And it made me kind of uncomfortable in some ways. Like I just hadn't thought in those terms, and but found it like really great, and actually have been trying to apply it to some of the things I've been thinking about in terms of how we grow some of our educational programming in the health system. So those are a few more practical and stretching kind of the way I think.
Yep. Joseph, what about you? Which classes did you find most impactful for your, that you could put into your job, into your role?
Yeah, I think John, I mean, I share John's same exact feeling. Being in healthcare, OLAB was very eye-opening. So what that is basically anything that is frustrating or a problem or recurring nightmare in your organization, that's your homework. That's your whole project for the whole thing. And it could be something as mundane as inventory. I mean, here at a hospital, ordering things. It doesn't sound very interesting, but it has such massive implications, because usually it goes something like this. I need something, I ask for it, it doesn't get there. That's frustrating. A bunch of emails go by, a bunch of time gets wasted, but you never really see 5 degrees beyond your emails, and every individual person, from the loading dock to the person in some cubicle that's actually putting in the purchase order, to where, like, every step of the way, actually how something gets done in an organization. So I was living in my world, but everybody else's world has all kinds of different issues. And so you go down there and you go and see personally firsthand, and you follow the trail down the road, down the whole line of how something gets done, and every single person that touches it. And then you look at the system, like, does it make sense that there are 5 people down the line? Can we do a shortcut? How do we make this better for everybody? And actually you start seeing solutions instead of thinking that something's unsolvable. So OLAB was very eye-opening for me, and I became friends with a lot of these people I never met, and just emails going back and forth in a large institution with a lot of institutional history and inertia. So I love that. I also love D&D because being able, I mean, just as a clinician, to think statistically in more critical and high level way was great. So I agree with John. And lastly, I would just add that the value of the actual cohort that you're with. I know Mike and Andy and Tom were showing the demographics, but these are all people that have been, they're at the top of their game. And so they sort of add on top of all of the classes you get. And it's pretty incredible.
There's a question from Daryl in the Q&A. How did you manage your time balancing your work schedule, family obligations, and the EMBA? And then also, how difficult was it to reacclimate to the classroom after being away for such a structured educational model for so many years?
Well, I can start. So I guess for me, for the classroom, it had been a little while, probably, I don't know, 2 decades or something like that. But I do a fair amount of teaching in the hospital setting, so that it made it a little less traumatic, although it's just different being in class as a learner. I've really enjoyed it, and I think partly the reason I've enjoyed it is that I've tried to set like pretty clear limits with myself in terms of like understanding like how much time I have to spend on homework, being very clear with myself, like what are my learning goals for certain classes. And then also just realizing for a lot of classes, you're working in teams. Actually, you're doing like team projects, team homeworks. And so I've just, really tried to balance, wanting to make sure I learn everything with all that I need to, without trying to like say I want to spend the extra, hour to like get that one little extra piece of detail correct on the homework. It's not that I don't want to get everything correct, but I think you have to just balance, time and ROI based on the fact that you're still working full time. So.
Yeah, I would say you figure it out. I think that's the simple answer. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but there's so much on your plate today, and that of course only increases throughout the experience. But I think the great part is that you figure it out, right? Based on priorities, what you need to get done, you make time for it, right? If it's family, you make time for it and you turn it off at school. If it's school, you've got to write a paper, you make time for it. And so for me, you know, for those of you who may need to do a prerequisite class, as an example, I did. It was a nice way to do a dry run, to remember what it's like to study, and then of course to go, you know, to work at the same time. And you find those times that you're productive. Like, what's your sweet spot? For me, it was mornings, right? And for me to, you know, get up early and to get some of my reading done before I started the day just helped me feel like I was making progress, right? You don't have to do everything all at once, but if you just, you know, break it down into small pieces throughout the week, I think you can be really successful.
We had a great question come in from Julie, and she was curious if you have seen any classmates either within your own cohort or other cohorts. So either 21s, Joseph, for you, or, you know, I know 24s are still new, John and Kylie, transition to the healthcare sector and maybe use the curriculum and use what their learnings are to do so. And if, second part of that question is if you have any advice for those who are seeking maybe a career change to go into the healthcare sector, and maybe how they should be utilizing the EMBA to do so.
I would answer from being in healthcare. We need people outside of healthcare to innovate, because we're just taking care of patients. And so I've seen a number of my colleagues in my cohort, one of which I'm actually working with now, who's purely, you know, computer science engineer. And there's no way I'm going to figure out that problem. So he brings all kinds of solutions, all kinds of technology I wasn't even aware of. I really think just interacting immediately within your cohort, but also tapping into the MIT ecosystem is just overflowing. So it's really what you do with it. If you want to connect with people in healthcare, it's definitely the place to be. It's massive, and you just uncover and start talking to people, and before you know it, you're not going to have enough time in the day. You're going to have to figure out how to prioritize what in healthcare you want to do. But I would probably just start speaking with people in your cohort, looking at tapping into MIT ecosystem.
Yeah, and I would say that there are definitely people in my class who have had ideas for startups or wanting to do startups that were not in healthcare, and made some connections in class with physicians who actually, and now I know at least one where I think they're actually trying to do a startup together right now. So actually is a really good, and that's why it's great to have like a class with such varied, people with such varied backgrounds and interests. You don't know what might happen actually when you get exposed to people. And I saw this connection happening where I suspect, they didn't know that they were each going to be in our class, and it just sort of happened from being together for this long. I do want to say something about the homework, because I know there's often homework anxiety out there, and Kylie is smiling. I would say the program does a really great job, spacing it out in the most reasonable way possible. It's just, I think the profs are very good now because they've done it for a while. Everyone knows what we're all taking, pretty much, except for electives and stuff. But even then, it's pretty programmed as to when you're doing it. So they really do try to pace the deadlines for the homeworks in a way that it's not overwhelming. It is a degree program, so you actually have to do a fair amount of work, but I think they do a great job planning that as much as they can. So
yeah, I would have to agree on that, John. So I'd say from the healthcare transition, I think if you're considering a transition, again, this is a great program to do so. there's going to be so many people in there, and they have such broad networks. So, aside from the classes, you've got great people to just really pick their brains on. So it's a wonderful way to kind of maximize the experience. On the assignments, you're right. You plan ahead and you figure it out, right? There's a ton that they'll send to you, which is awesome. And you do your best to get through as much as you can from a reading perspective, so you're prepared for class. And then the assignments, usually they give you enough lead time to get them done. And if you're ever in, a situation, they're really flexible and helping you navigate that, if it's adjustment on the date and stuff. So, the team's done a really good job. You have an advisor that helps you kind of navigate that, but yeah, it's definitely doable. So don't stress about that piece.
I just wanted to add that I stressed about it during school, because I think I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to graduate. I'm up till 1 a.m. in the OR, and I got this thing due. And I just would say that the amount of support that I received at MIT, the amount from the administration, from my colleagues, from my cohorts, was like, usually I feel like a lot is on my shoulders. I know all of you here are at the top of your game, and you carry a lot of responsibility, but they're there to help you really succeed and fulfill whatever you're meant to do in this world. And I'm so grateful, and I can think of very specific instances from both people in my cohort as well as the administration that just took a huge weight off my shoulders. So, I was learning how to be a student. I haven't been a student in a long time. I love being a student. I love not knowing, being able to ask stupid questions, really basic stuff, and opening my mind. I think it's like you're best equipped to go to school now, because you're doing it for a purpose, and instead of some abstract thing back way back when you weren't even sure exactly what you were going to do with this stuff. So I think this is like summer camp for adults. Like what Kylie was saying, you really get to be a little selfish, be reflective, think about what you're actually going to do with the rest of your life. So it was awesome.
I would say part of the reason that environment is there, Joseph and Kylie, maybe you agree, is it's like the cohort and sort of just like what it attracts, people that have been out working for a while. And I think it just changes kind of the tenor of the program. I remember one weekend we were eating breakfast before class, and someone said wow, everyone's so supportive of each other here. And I was like, yeah. And I was thinking, why are they saying this? And I guess because they know of people who've been in some other EMBA programs where it just wasn't that. It was actually quite intense. And we were all struck by the fact that it didn't, there's work to do, but it didn't feel like we were all, competing with each other. It actually felt quite the opposite. So I think that's really important in a program like this, where everyone is working full time, so sets the right tone.
I would just add, It is the people, right? People said this, I'm going to say that people said that it's the people, they're great. They have this motto, no EMBA left behind, but you never really know until you go through the program. But I can honestly say, right, John and I are in what we have this semester, one more semester after this. And I'd say it really is like that. You're just surrounded with so many like-minded individuals that no one wants anyone to fail. And they're happy to hop on a call if it's, if you're struggling with something, or, pick up the slack on something if you're slammed or stressed out, right? It is such a team atmosphere, but it is definitely the people that makes it most special.
I think the people, I think that's an excellent transition. We had a question come in from Kiar in chat, and talking about the people in your cohort, but also the people maybe in your individual teams at work. And I really appreciate this question. Can panelists share their personal experiences on how the program enabled them with organizational leadership, and how they positively influenced your own team members?
I'm happy to kick off because one of the classes I actually was going to mention earlier that really helped me was organizational processes. You'll hear this, terminology around the 3 lenses and what, really how your organization operates, either culturally or politically or structurally. And so you talk about applying that within your team or within, my role at the time, which was really influencing and leading executives. It really helped me to think differently about the things that I had to drive forward, right? If it was leading a project or if it was persuading someone in a bigger trade-off decision, it helps you to better tackle that versus, because of the frameworks that you learn. So then you can be more intentional and thoughtful as you're applying it in whatever scenario. So that's probably one that, you kick off with and you can apply it immediately based on what your sphere looks like at work. So either, managing up or managing out across your organization. I think it just really challenges your thinking to help you kind of move things forward.
And Joseph or John, anything that you would offer?
Yeah, I mentioned this a little bit in one of my responses in the chat, but like there are many classes that touch upon like change, I'd call it change leadership and just like leadership in general. And if COVID has taught us like many things, but like how important leadership is, actually good leadership. And I think there is something to leadership. Like it's not just like putting like the smartest person, however you define that, like in a leadership position. There are actually like skills and frameworks around leadership and how to think about like how you want to lead. And I think I put in the chat, and Kylie and I are in this Thursday class together, Kylie, your leadership signature. And it's actually really it makes you think quite deeply about like who you are as a leader now and who you want to be and how do you get there. And it's actually not that easy sometimes to think about those things if you don't have someone who's so well versed in thinking about leadership and frameworks to help you do that. And I would say there are multiple other course classes where how you lead in leadership and implement change is a big part of it, and it's easily applied across industries for any kind of problem you're trying to deal with in your institution.
I wanted to add that I found some of the best leadership knowledge, and I'll share like just personally, is the executive coach. Like everybody gets the opportunity to get an executive coach. And that starts with this 360 evaluation, which is usually sounds about as fun as a colonoscopy, but it's definitely good for you. And the thing that my insight after doing it is that whether you want a 360 evaluation or not, you're already getting one from all of your peers. You just don't know it. Everybody already has an opinion about you, but there are going to be blind spots all of us had, and I certainly had mine. And so I think that without, actively learning about leadership and reading about it and getting all of this good information is one thing, but you're not going to see your blind spots without the 360 and without really an executive coach that's just going to hold up a mirror to you, no filters. And so I'll just share with you like a very basic insight that totally flipped my world and made me so much happier at work and so my colleagues happier and just more effective as a team. So, I mean, as a surgeon, you're always taught the patient is first, the patient comes first, put the patient first, sounds natural, right? So you're always thinking about, okay, when they're prepping and draping the patient, I'm making sure everything's perfectly sterile. If something is off a little, then I'm like, you broke sterility, we have to do it this way, we have to do it that way. Anyway, I feel like myself looking at every little detail on the patient myself. The problem with that model is that everybody else in the room is actually not looking at the patient. They're looking at me, looking at the patient. And I never really appreciated it. And I wasn't self-aware of like what my face looked like, that there's really a spotlight on me. As all leaders in your own organizations, respectively, there's a spotlight on you. And the people around you, in order to put the patient first, I had to put my team first. So when I enter the room now, I'm not really focused on the patient first. Strangely, paradoxically, I'm focused on every nurse, every scrub tech, everybody there. anesthesia, everybody. And in consequence, they then stop focusing on me and start focusing on the patient. So now I've multiplied my presence, not only when I'm in the room, but when I'm out of the room. Instead of focusing on the guy that's like hyper focused on everything, they're actually focused on the patient. So many of you would be looking at this like, this guy's like, you know, he should have, I knew that my whole life. That's how I run my practice. But all of us have blind spots. All of us have weaknesses. We're life works in progress, lifelong. And I think for me, that that ability to actually have reflection in my own organization totally transforms the way I practice. And I love coming to work. I really, I love the team, and the patients get better care. So anyway, sorry for the long thing, but there are many dimensions for leadership here. And I think the MIT does an outstanding job.
Joseph, that was incredible. May I add just one thought? Because it made me think of the person who asked earlier around the transition into healthcare. And Joseph mentioned the executive coach, which is amazing. But there's also the career development office. And so for transition, you don't have to figure it all out. They have wonderful people that really help you to do also more self reflection. I know this sounds like it's all really deep, but it's such great things to do. And then they also help you to kind of connect with networks that you may not have access to. So it really is a good team that helps you build a game plan if you do want to make a transition or at least evaluate and consider it.
Yeah, I so appreciate all those answers. I know we're starting to run out of time, so I have one more question from the panel that I'm going to editorialize and make into a two-part question. So this is from Andrew. When applying, did your statement of purpose emphasize healthcare impact, and has that statement of purpose when you first applied, if you can remember it, has that changed since you've gone through the EMBA program? Obviously, John and Kylie, you're still in the thick of it. Joseph, you are a recent grad. I think maybe talking about what you were thinking when you were going into the program and what happened when you came out, what those expectations and how your expectations changed.
So, are you saying in terms of like what we thought, like our yeah, okay. So I would say it hasn't changed. I mean, I think the core reasons why I wanted to do and enter in the program are still the same. Be a better leader, learn frameworks on leadership, and even, some of the things we talked about, like, quality improvement, process improvement type things, marketing actually, also, I think, is a big thing now in healthcare in terms of thinking about positioning of, healthcare organizations and just what are you doing, in your organization, and how do you want to portray that out there in the real world. So I wouldn't say it's changed my view on what ultimately I want to do, sort of leadership at higher levels within my organization, or maybe larger roles outside the organization down the line.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yes, so first of all, from an essay standpoint, make sure you take the time. Don't fill them out last minute, because they're really meant to be a really reflective exercise. And I would just challenge you all to say, go there, right? Go there with yourself, because I think that reflection, especially on that particular essay, my purpose hasn't changed. For example, my purpose in joining kind of healthcare is really to be an advocate for people who don't have a voice, right? To be able to help them, to take care of themselves better. And so when I think of how and why I chose this program, it was to advance my framework so I could better innovate for patients. And so I'd say, I think it was in the summer, I don't know, it's almost at that year mark where somebody, I can't remember, Mike, in the program said, if you need to remember like why you joined, dust off that statement and kind of remind yourself. And so a lot of us did that and looked at it, and you know, it really is true, and it gave us a nice boost into to continuing to stay focused and getting the most out of the program. But yeah, I'd say that I feel like I'm delivering on what that purpose is, and excited to be in Joseph's position on the other side to see how it all kind of plays out in the end.
This is awesome. I'd love to meet you guys in person. I mean, there were several levels or dimensions what I was seeking at MIT Sloan. And I think on a practical level, as a practicing physician, it's just you're just so consumed by practice. I just never had the toolbox. Like there were other doctors that sort of knew business. I didn't really grow up with any parental guidance on like finance or any like, and medicine. It's almost like by design, they make you stupid when it comes to money, how things actually get paid for, how things get to a market, how the stuff that you're using actually got into your hands. There's a whole, like all of that is kind of I felt blinded to and very limited. Like I felt very ignorant, and I didn't like feeling ignorant. There are things that I knew that are so simple in healthcare. There's like so much low-hanging fruit. And if I just had the right tools and I could look at a financial statement or actually interact with these people that make all the decisions, I'd be able to actually have a bigger impact and do more than just one patient at a time. And what I found, what frustrated me, was all the coolest, newest technology of what healthcare might look like in 20 to 50 years, which is really what I'm fascinated about. Doctors don't see that. It's venture capitalists, it's angel investors, it's engineers, it's people that are not actually taking care of patients, so far removed from them. And I would go to my conferences and they'd have the exhibitors booth with the new technology, which is really like if you went to a store and they were saying the iPhone 3, look, it's new. It's like that technology that got commercialized is really 10 to 15 years old already. And the really cool new stuff, we don't even get to see because that's like in the startup stealth mode world where doctors like really rarely go unless you're the actual startup. So that's the world that was fascinating to me, that was going to hold the answers to problems I cannot solve in the operating room, to things that cause patient suffering that we have no solution to. And sooner or later, we're all going to be patients. So like that, and that's really why I wanted to go from a practical level. And I wanted to start this fund basically to bridge the gulf between early stage startup technologies to the doctors on the front lines that actually have the problems that they need solutions for. On a personal, and that hasn't changed, but I have changed my comfort zone. Like I'm constantly, as I'm pursuing this dream, changing and pushing my comfort limits and connecting with people I never thought I would connect with, taking on responsibilities I never thought I was capable of. And then there was the personal level where the idea of going through something difficult, like residency is something difficult that bound me to develop relationships and friendships that are lifelong. And that, like, those are my best friends. Some of those are, you can't produce them at like a new meet and greet or networking thing. Like if you go through this hard thing with your cohort and you're sweating and bleeding and crying and succeeding and failing and succeeding again, that definitely binds you. A very diverse group of people with amazing talents, perspectives, like being bound to other people with a very common drive who are high level is just such a rare opportunity. And that really, I wanted that experience. Like this is not something I want to do online for the information, for the degree. And the people were the most amazing part of it.
I'll just say one more thing that I think the overarching reason why I went into the program was to learn how to think, differently about problems. I think one of the most valuable things about education is teaching you how to think about issues. right? And how to solve problems. And the program is just, that's to me what it's really all about. And in terms of like, has it changed what I think I want to do? I'd have to go back and really look at my statement, but I'm pretty sure what I said. But what I would say that I didn't say in my statement is that I was fairly confident by being in this program with this kind of cohort, that if I at some point wanted to pivot into something healthcare related, but not exactly where I am right now, that it would do that. And I'm actually, it's been true, like just being around people who are in areas connected to what I do, but not in it, has allowed me to think about what other possibilities, if I wanted to go down that direction. I'm still committed to the path I have now, but it's really equipped me well to think about pivoting if I wanted to at some point. So.
Yeah, that's great. John, Joseph, and Kylie, I think some of these answers have just been so incredible. So I really want to take the time or take a moment just to really share my appreciation. And I know the team's appreciation for joining us tonight. And, you're three excellent examples of members of our community in healthcare who are really just stars in our community. So we really appreciate having you. And, we have just maybe a couple more slides to share before we'll close it out here. We mentioned in the chat, at least, we talked a lot about the application that's coming up, application requirements. If you are looking to apply this year to the MIT EMBA, you should know that our application is now open. We are in a application rounds going forward. So there's 5 rounds in which you can apply. The very first one, the first round is coming up. It's about a month away, January 12th. If you do apply by that round, you would get a decision about 2 months later, and that's pretty consistent. It ends up being about a deadline for each round per month. And then the final deadline is May 4th, 2023, and that's for a start year of September 2023. And all deadlines are at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time sharp. And we do have some upcoming MIT EMBA events coming up. Our technology panel will be next week, and we will be, if you are in Houston, Austin, or Dallas, we'll be visiting the third week of January, those cities will also be holding an MIT EMBA Program Insights event, and that is at MIT Sloan. So if you are in the area, please join us. And then we have our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the MIT Executive MBA webinar on Thursday, February 2nd. You can sign up for those events and more at the website that is listed below. And so, we always like to close, but, by saying at the end of the night, after hearing all of your thoughtful questions, if you want to challenge yourself, and if you want to challenge convention, if you want to broaden your perspective as well as your network, if you want to have an impact on your company, your organization, your industry, and the world, we hope to hear from you. On behalf of Andy and Tom, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our panelists. I hope that you have a great rest of the evening. Take care.